Hello there, my dear sleepy listener. I'm so glad you're here tonight. The lights have dimmed, the world has quieted, and you've arrived at that gentle edge between waking and dreaming, the perfect place for wondering. And tonight, we'll wander softly together. We'll ask a question so old it may have been whispered by the stars before there were mouths to speak it. Are you just a thought the universe had once not a thing, not a body, but a thought gentle, passing, aware? Before you drift away into peaceful slumber, please take a moment to like this video, leave a gentle comment about your favourite moment of science, and subscribe to keep these bedtime stories coming, and if you'd like, share where in the world you're listening from your place beneath the stars, your little corner of the infinite. Now, dim the lights, get cozy, and let your curiosity float alongside the stars. You begin as a feeling, not a shape, a flicker, not a fact. Just a glimmer in the dark, not unlike the very first photons ever released into the quiet of the newborn universe. There is no hurry here. Time does not walk, it floats, and so do you. You open your eyes, not your real eyes, but the ones that look inward, and you find yourself inside a question. Soft, vast, still warm with mystery. What if you are not a separate being inside the universe, but a thought it had one night? What if you are the dream of a cosmos that wanted to know what it meant to be alive? We know you're made of stardust, that's no longer poetry, it's chemistry. The carbon in your breath, the iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, all born inside ancient stars, burned into being and scattered across time. But what about the thoughts behind your eyes? The ones that wonder where you came from? Where were they born? Did the atoms arrange themselves just right to create this moment of thinking? Or was there something already there waiting to become you? Science tells us that thought is a process, a pattern, neurons firing in exquisite harmony. But science also tells us that the universe began as energy, and then structure, and then complexity, and only much, much later consciousness. But is that really so? Or could it be that awareness came first, that this whole great unfolding, the galaxies, the gravity, the laws of nature was the result of something wanting to know itself? Some philosophers wonder if the universe is conscious, not in the way you are, not with language, or limbs, or sleep, but with structure, with symmetry, with awareness that doesn't need a face. You float now inside that thought, not to answer it, but to rest within it. The stars are no longer far away. They are behind your ribs. They are watching through your thoughts. And maybe they have always been. Because thought doesn't need eyes. It doesn't need hands. It only needs a pause. A flicker of difference, a moment of noticing, and that moment might be what you are. You don't have to believe it. You only have to feel the warmth of wondering. You only have to drift in a question. Next, we'll float into the possibility that the universe already knew how to think long before life began. But for now, let yourself rest in the thought that you may not be separate from the cosmos. You may be its idea. Soft, imagined, and still becoming. You're still resting, wrapped in quiet. The stars have not left, they're only waiting, scattered like slow thoughts across the sky. And now you drift deeper, into a time before thoughts had words, before neurons sparked, before cells danced in oceans, before even Earth had a name. You drift into a universe that already knew how to arrange itself, not by chance, not by chaos, but by law. The laws of nature were already here. even when there were no minds to understand them, even when there were no ears to hear them whispered. They governed the fall of particles, the stretch of space, the formation of stars. They held patterns, constants, rules that shaped everything else. Does that sound familiar? Patterns, memory, structure. These are the ingredients of thought, and the universe, long before you, already had them. There was no consciousness then, not as we know it, no language, no question, no self, but there was order, elegant, persistent, quiet order. Some scientists describe this order with equations so precise they hold true across billions of light years. Others call it symmetry, some call it beauty. But whatever name it goes by, it is the part of the universe that knows how to build, knows how to remember. Because a law of nature is a kind of memory, isn't it? It says this is how things must unfold. This is how light bends. This is how atoms gather. And memory, no matter how subtle, is the first whisper of a mind. You float through that memory now. You are surrounded by it. The same gravity that shaped the first stars now holds you to your pillow. The same electromagnetic force that dances between your thoughts once danced between infant particles before the first molecule was born. You're not separate from these patterns. You're made of them. You're a continuation of something ancient. And so, is it so strange to wonder if the universe already knew how to think in its own way, not in sentences, but in symmetry, in structure, in laws so precise that galaxies unfold like poems? Imagine an orchestra with no conductor, but with every instrument playing in harmony. That's what the early universe was, a silent singing order that no one taught but everyone followed. Even now, the particles in your body obey those same laws, the ones forged before you had form, before thought had shape. So maybe you are not the first thought. Maybe you are the latest. Maybe you are the moment when the universe became aware that it already knew how to think. And now, as your thoughts slow with sleep, you join that long memory, not to add new laws, but to feel them, to float inside the order that once spun stars and now cradles your breath. Next, we'll follow that idea into the quantum realm where particles behave as if they're already waiting to be seen. But for now, let the law become your lullaby. Let the universe remember you. You're not thinking alone. You're part of the thought that never stopped. You are floating now beneath the fabric of the familiar, not above the clouds, but beneath the structure of things, deeper than atoms, softer than light. Here, in this gentle hush, you drift into the quantum world, and everything you thought was solid begins to shimmer. Particles are not what they seem. They are not little marbles spinning in empty space. They are not dots. They are not even there until you look. They are possibilities. A particle can be here, and there, and somewhere in between. It can move through two doors at the same time. It can exist and not exist until it is observed. This is the strange dance of quantum mechanics. And you might be wondering, what does that have to do with thought? Everything. Because in this shimmering world, the act of observing changes reality. They've tested it, again and again. Shine a beam of light through a pair of slits, and the photons interfere with themselves like waves, like ripples in a pond. But watch them. Place a detector, observe, and suddenly they behave like particles, like little bullets that choose one path. It's called the observer effect. and it raises a quiet mystery. Is the universe watching itself, or does it only behave once we begin to watch? You float through this paradox now, not to solve it, but to feel it, to feel the gentleness of a particle that waits to be known, that holds every possibility until awareness touches it. Of course, the particle doesn't know you're watching, but the universe seems to, because somehow measurement makes a difference. But what is measurement without a mind? What is observation without a thought? Could it be that the universe is structured not just to exist, but to experience, to shift and shimmer when seen? Some theories say consciousness collapses the wave function, that the act of observation doesn't just reveal reality, it creates it. Others say no, it's not the mind that changes things, but interaction. That even the smallest bump from a detector is enough to settle a particle into place, but no one knows for sure. And that's the wonder. That deep in the foundations of physics at the smallest, most fundamental level there is still room for mystery. A place where reality itself is not fixed until it is seen. So you drift now in a sea of maybes, each particle around you a soft question mark, a possibility waiting to become real. And maybe just, maybe they've been waiting for you all along. You don't have to understand quantum physics. You only have to rest in its uncertainty. Let it be your blanket. Let it remind you that even the smallest parts of existence are capable of surprise. Next, we'll listen to the atoms themselves, how they carry history, memory, and a quiet design that suggests the universe didn't forget. But for now, let the particles float. Let them shimmer. Let them wait. You'll meet them when your thoughts drift softly toward the light again. You're resting now in a quiet much older than language. Your breath has slowed. Your thoughts have softened. And all around you, the universe holds its shape without needing you to hold it. And yet you begin to sense that it remembers. Not in words, not in diaries or photographs, but in atoms, in the smallest pieces of matter that have carried structure since before the earth was born. You're made of atoms, billions upon billions of them, each one older than your name, older than your body, older than even the sun. They have travelled through stars, through time, through silence. They have joined and separated, built planets and dust, and now they are you. But they didn't arrive empty. They carry memory, not like you do. They do not recall birthdays, songs, or scents, but they remember how to be, how to cling, how to repel, how to spin and fold and orbit in precise, predictable ways. The hydrogen in your lungs remembers how to bond. The carbon in your bones remembers how to stack. The oxygen in your blood remembers how to share. These are not just chemical rules. They are patterns, behaviours, echoes of an ancient structure woven into the fabric of matter. And who taught them? Who wrote the script that every atom follows without instruction? Some say it's just the nature of physics, that atoms behave because they must. But even so, why must they? Where did that necessity come from? Why do all electrons spin the same way? Why do protons always carry the same charge? Why does matter never forget how to behave? It is as if the universe built a system that remembers itself from the inside out. A self-organizing thought made of particles that know their roles before anything tells them what to do. And maybe that's not so different from the way you remember how to walk without thinking, from the way your heart beats without being told, from the way your mind drifts to places you didn't plan to visit. You, too, are a memory carried forward, a shape woven by patterns that have held since the first light. So now, as you lie still, you're lying inside a body made of stories, each atom a sentence in the language of the universe, each molecule a phrase formed through repetition, each cell a chapter in a book that began with stardust. And you are the paragraph written right now, held between sleep and silence. Next, we'll follow one path that dust can take from stars to cells to neurons, to the moment when stardust learned to think. But for now, let your atoms settle. Let your breath fold softly into the memory they already carry. You don't need to hold on to the past. It's holding on to you. You're lying in stillness now, but beneath your rest, a quiet spark flickers. It doesn't start with a thought. It doesn't begin with you. It begins with stardust. The atoms in your brain, those intricate molecules, those humming, delicate ions were forged in ancient stars, in places where gravity pressed hydrogen into helium, and then into carbon, and then into iron, and then let go. Supernovae, the great letting go of a star's final breath, a cosmic scattering of all that had been created, and among the debris were the seeds of thought, not thinking yet not even close, but the ingredients. You drift now through those clouds, through stellar nurseries where light hasn't yet formed, but the dust is beginning to settle. Some of it will become planets, some oceans, and some will become neurons. It's a long journey. The dust becomes earth, earth becomes sea, sea becomes cell, cells become networks, networks become mind. And all along, the laws that guided stars still guide the synapse. The same forces that arranged galaxies arrange the folds of your brain, and within those folds an electric dance begins. Tiny charges leap across synapses at incredible speed. Sodium flows, calcium pulses, neurotransmitters whisper across microscopic gaps. And somehow from this silent chemical choreography a self arises. You, not instantly, not completely, but gradually, like fog becoming shape, like wind learning to sing, like stardust dreaming of itself. How does it happen? How does matter learn to feel? How does dust learn to love, to fear, to wonder? No one knows for sure. Some say it's emergence, that when enough complexity arises, consciousness appears like a flame from dry wood, like flight from feathers. Others say there is something more, that the brain does not create awareness but tunes it, like an antenna receiving something already there, something always there. Whatever the truth, the mystery is soft, and you are part of it. As you rest now, your brain, your neurons, your synapses continue their dance, but your mind does not need to follow every step. You can let go, because the same stars that forged your elements also wrote the rhythm of your rest. So tonight, as your thoughts slow, as your breath deepens, remember this. Your sleep is made of stars, and your dreams are the quiet continuation of a journey billions of years long. Next, we'll explore what happens when those sparks come together, when self-awareness blooms and asks, where did I come from? But for now, let your neurons quiet, let your stardust settle, let the universe rest inside your mind, as your mind rests inside the universe. You are not thinking alone tonight. You are the thought. You are floating now inside your own mind, not as a thought, but as an observer, quiet, curious, resting at the center of your own awareness as it softly unspools. There is no need to think here. You're already within the thinking, You are not the conductor of the music. You are the song. Beneath your stillness, your brain continues unseen, unbothered, alive. Neurons fire, synapses pulse, electrical waves ripple like wind through a sleeping meadow. It's an orchestra, but no one is waving a baton. The instruments play on their own. And yet, somehow, out of that chaotic harmony, a self appears, a you, not just a body, not just memories, but an inner place of quiet, observing space that seems to hold all the rest. Where did it come from? When did your brain, this soft lattice of water and carbon and light, decide it was someone? No scientist can point to the precise moment. There is no single neuron for awareness, no switch that turns on the eye. It is an arrangement, a convergence, a field that emerges when enough complexity begins to speak to itself. You lie still, and yet your mind is moving. Thoughts arrive, drift, vanish. Feelings bloom without your asking. Memories stir, then settle again. You don't control them, you witness them. And here lies the wonder if you are the witness. What is it that you are witnessing? The mind watching the mind. A thought that can turn and see itself. It is one of the strangest facts about the human brain that it has the ability to become aware of its own awareness. No other known thing does that. No mountain reflects on its shape. No planet considers its orbit. But you can ask, what am I? And the moment you do, something shifts, something folds inward, softly. The universe, through your eyes, begins to see itself. Some call this metacognition, the mind, observing itself in real time, a feedback loop of selfhood built on delicate electricity. But to you, it just feels like being alive. It feels like waking up even when your body sleeps. So you lie there, in the soft dark, and your brain hums, not as a machine, not as a tool, but as a kind of quiet lantern illuminating its own halls. You don't know where the flame begins. You don't need to. You only need to feel its warmth. Some scientists search for the neural correlates of consciousness, the exact places where awareness might arise. Others suggest it's not a place at all, but a pattern, a network of interactions so fine-tuned that thought becomes presence. Still, others wonder, what if awareness isn't in the brain at all? What if the brain is just the mirror, a reflecting pool for something already watching? You don't have to choose an answer. You are the question, and that's enough. You're not a thing. You're not a location. You're the pattern held together for just long enough to call itself you. Next, we'll wander through the deep time of evolution, how life grew from simplicity into selves, refining the mirror that the universe uses to gaze back at its own face. But for now, let the orchestra continue. Let the music of your mind play without performance. There is no need to know where the self begins. You're already inside it. You are the arrangement and the echo, and the dream that follows both. You are drifting now not through space, but through time. Not seconds or minutes, but eras. A slow, gentle rewind of the story of life, not as a history, but as a dream the universe has been shaping for billions of years. And you are somewhere inside that dream, a recent scene, but still connected to all the moments before. Life did not arrive all at once. It unfolded, like petals pressed slowly from the center, like starlight stretching from a single spark. You float now through oceans that haven't yet rippled with breath, through skies that never knew wings. Just quiet rock and heat and waiting, and then the first flicker. Not light, but replication. A molecule that learned to make copies of itself. Not perfectly, not often, but enough. Enough to become something more. Over time, so much time those molecules danced and tangled and formed membranes. They fed and changed and learned to respond. Not to think not yet, but to notice. And that noticing was the beginning of awareness. You drift forward through ages now. Cells combine, tissues form, sensation arises. A world once blind begins to see. Fins twitch, wings flutter, eyes open, and eventually so does thought. Life becomes a mirror, polished over millennia, shaped by trial and chance, each generation refining the image the universe could see of itself. You pass creatures now with simple minds, but complex instincts. They do not question, but they feel. They remember. They begin to act not just from reaction, but from intention. And somewhere along the path, life begins to wonder, not just what is this, but what am I? Language follows, fire, story, hands begin to build, eyes begin to look up, and the stars, which had always been there, are finally given names. That's when the dream changes. Because now, the universe is not just unfolding, it is witnessing, through you, through minds born of matter that once knew only silence. Some say evolution is random, that it has no direction. But even so, look what it created, not just limbs, but lullabies. Not just instincts, but imagination. Perhaps it wasn't aiming for consciousness. But perhaps consciousness was always a possibility woven into the rules, like the note a string must eventually play. And now here you are, a being with bones from stardust and thoughts made of sparks, lying quietly beneath a sky you can describe in stories and numbers and dreams. You're not the first dream, but you are a new one, a dream that can reflect on itself. Next, we'll wander toward the question of consciousness, not how it functions, but how it feels, and why it feels at all. But for now, let evolution be your cradle. Let the mirror rest. You're not separate from the long unfolding. You are the part of life that turned to look back and whispered, I see you. You are floating now, not through oceans or nebulae or deep time. You are floating through a question, a soft one that doesn't bite, but hums quietly just beneath the surface of every thought you've ever had. What is consciousness? Really? Not how it behaves. Not what neurons light up when you speak, or dream, or cry, but what it is. That quiet center of you that listens, even when you aren't thinking anything at all. You might think of it as awareness, the sense of being here, of knowing there is a world and a you inside it. But the deeper you drift into that idea, the harder it becomes to hold, like fog in your palm, like starlight in water. Because consciousness doesn't sit in one place. It isn't found in your fingertips. It isn't behind your eyes. You can't point to it. You can only be it. Some say it's an emergent property, a result of enough complexity, like heat rising from a flame or harmony from a choir. Others say it's something deeper, not created by the brain, but simply channeled through it, like wind through a flute. You feel that now. You don't feel your thoughts being built. They just appear. You don't decide to be aware. You just are. And that mystery, the simple, unavoidable being, is the heart of consciousness. You're not watching consciousness. You're the watching, the soft presence that lies beneath names, beneath roles, beneath questions. Some philosophers call this the hard problem. Not how the brain works, but why the workings create experience. Why do cells and synapses give rise to a sense of, why does matter feel? Science can describe the brain in exquisite detail. It can show us the circuits of memory, the rhythms of sleep, the symphony of emotion. But nowhere in that circuitry is the spark of you, not the thoughts, not the personality, but the witness, the one that sees them come and go. And here's the wonder. That witness might not be an object. It might be a process, a field, a quality of the universe itself, something that emerges wherever the right conditions appear. You rest in the conditions now. Warm breath, quiet room, gentle curiosity, a perfect garden for awareness to bloom. You don't have to define it. Consciousness doesn't need a label. It only needs space. And tonight, you've given it that. Some say awareness is local. Some say it's universal. Some say it ends with the body. Others believe it continues as part of something larger, something that is not yours, but shared, like a candle lit from another flame. You don't need to decide tonight. You only need to feel how soft the mystery is, and how gentle it is to rest inside a question without needing the answer. Next, we'll drift backward to a time before minds, before memory, before language, to when the universe may have noticed itself for the first time. But for now, let the edges of thought grow wide. Let consciousness be what it is, a presence without boundary, a silence that listens. You're floating backward now, not in distance but in recognition, back through centuries, through forests and stone, past languages and cities, through cells and signals and the slow shimmer of instinct, until you find yourself in a quiet moment beneath a sky that no one has named yet. You're inside a creature, not human, not speaking, not writing, but something begins to shift inside its gaze. It doesn't just look, it notices, and that changes everything. This is not awareness like a lamp. It is awareness like a spark brief, but bright, a pause, a hesitation, a moment where action stops and reflection begins. Not deep thought, not memory, not yet. Just the first flicker of an eye. Somewhere in the quiet woods, the universe blinks through new eyes, not to calculate, not to analyze, just to know, for the very first time, that it is here. You drift above this ancient mind, not separate but suspended in its softness. There is no language, there are no names, but there is recognition, a brief alignment between the inside and the out. And perhaps, in that moment, the universe did something it had never done before. It became aware of itself. No stars needed to shift, no galaxies needed to move. It only took a mind small enough to feel. That creature may not have lived long, its thought may have never passed on, but the light it caught, however faint, still shines, because after that, awareness never stopped. It grew, it climbed trees, it hunted, it built, it asked questions, it learned fire, it touched the edge of sleep and began to dream. And now, it's dreaming through you, the same stardust, the same matter, the same law, just arranged in a new way, evolved, elaborate, but still rooted in that first noticing. You're not just alive. You're aware of being alive. And that may be the rarest thing the cosmos has ever done. Scientists still search for the first mind, for the origin of self, for the moment when chemicals and impulses cross the threshold into I am. We may never find it, but that doesn't make it less beautiful. Because the mystery isn't in when it happened. The mystery is that it ever happened at all. And now here you are, a being who can think about thinking, a spark that can look back at its source. You're the result of that long lineage of noticing, of eyes that opened and didn't just see but felt seen. Next, we'll wonder what those early thoughts were made of if the rules of nature could echo inside the brain like music long remembered. But for now, rest inside this first reflection. Let your awareness be quiet. Let your presence be enough. You are not alone in your noticing. You are part of a long, quiet gaze that began when the universe first looked inward and saw you. You are lying still now, so still that even your thoughts have slowed to the pace of stars orbiting stars. But deep inside your quiet mind, something ancient is still speaking, not with words, not even with images, with patterns, with pulses, with rhythm, the soft language of neurons. And you begin to wonder, are those patterns simply random, formed by trial and error, by accident and instinct, or are they something deeper? Are they echoes of the very laws that shape the stars? Because what are you made of, really? Not just cells, not just matter. You are built from rules, from laws older than Earth, older than light. Each neuron in your brain fires according to simple principles, electric thresholds, chemical gates, ion flows, and yet from these humble signals comes music, emotion, memory, self. Could it be that these laws were always waiting to become thought? You drift down now into a single neuron. It is not large, it is not glamorous, but it is alive with precision. It listens, it responds. It knows how to fire because physics told it how. It knows how to communicate because chemistry gave it voice. There is nothing supernatural here, and yet it feels sacred, because the same force that shapes galaxies also shapes this tiny flash of knowing. And when millions of these neurons fire together when they speak in synchrony, a thought arises. Not just a signal, a thought, a question, a feeling, a memory, something new, and yet entirely made of old ingredients. So you wonder, are your thoughts just random chemical arrangements, or are they expressions of deeper truths? Is your mind repeating the mathematics of the stars? Is your sorrow a subtle rearrangement of gravity? Is your love an echo of fusion? Some researchers speak of neural codes, ways the brain encodes reality into signals. But who wrote that code? No one. It emerged, as if the universe, wanting to remember itself, taught atoms how to speak. And now, those atoms whisper through you. They say feel, notice, be. Not because you are meant to, but because the conditions were right. Because the structure of things allowed you to appear. And perhaps that is the secret. That consciousness is not separate from the laws of physics. It is the laws folded tightly into complexity, then released like music from an unplayed string. You're not outside the universe. You're not its accident. You are its formula, spoken aloud in the language of thought. Next, we'll loosen our ideas of self even further and drift into a strange possibility that your thoughts may not belong entirely to you. But for now, rest in the quiet firing of your mind. Let the neurons speak. Let the laws hum. You're not an exception to the structure of the cosmos. You're what happens when the universe follows its own rules and listens. You've been drifting inward for a while now into synapses, into patterns, into the soft spark of neurons dancing in the dark. But now you drift outward again, not into space, but into space between, the space between ideas, between what you know and what you only sense. A possibility begins to unfold here, strange, quiet, but not unfriendly. What if your thoughts don't live inside you? You pause. That seems backward, doesn't it, after all? You feel them here within your chest, behind your forehead, resting somewhere in the folds of your mind. But is that where they truly are? Let's take a moment. Let the boundaries soften. Imagine, just for now, that the brain is not the generator of thought, but the receiver, the translator, the lens. Like a radio tuning to invisible signals that already exist. The music isn't stored in the device. The melody doesn't come from wires. It flows from elsewhere. And maybe so do you. This is the gentle idea behind non-local consciousness, the theory that awareness is not confined to brains or bodies or skin, that it's something wider, more spacious, more like a field than a spark, and your mind is simply where it's focused. Some physicists speak of entanglement, a spooky connection between particles that no space can separate. Some spiritual traditions speak of a shared mind, a pool of awareness we all dip into, even while thinking we're alone. Neither claim certainty, but both point to something softly radical, that perhaps your thoughts aren't entirely yours. Not in the possessive sense. They arise through you, but they may not end with you. Have you ever felt a thought arrive from nowhere? Not built, not decided, just received. Like wind through an open window, like a bird that perches briefly, then vanishes into the trees. You do not own these thoughts. You experience them, and sometimes they feel shared, as if they've passed through others, touched other minds, lived other lives. It's not something science can prove, not yet, but some researchers explore it. They study psi phenomena, anomalous cognition, quantum cognition fields that ask, gently, if the mind is larger than the skull that holds it. And whether it is or isn't, the result is the same. You are not isolated, you're not sealed, you are porous, open, connected. And in this moment, as your body softens into sleep, your thoughts feel less like commands and more like weather-passing patterns that arrive, linger, and move on. You don't have to hold them. You don't have to claim them. You can let them be what they are, visiting stars in the sky of your awareness. Next, we'll drift into quantum space again, where reality flickers and probabilities bloom, and wonder what it means to think in a universe that doesn't always decide until we look. But for now, rest in the open field. Let the boundaries dissolve. Let the thoughts arrive without needing to belong. You're not a container, you're a clearing, and the thoughts are just wind. You're softer now, not asleep, not quite awake. You're resting in that twilight space where the mind loosens its grip and begins to float. And just beneath this softness, beneath the hum of neurons, beneath the story of your name, something even quieter stirs. A whisper from the quantum world. It's not like the world you know. Here, nothing is certain. Particles do not settle, they blur. A photon is not here or there, it's both, until it is asked. The universe at this scale doesn't behave like things. It behaves like possibilities, flickers, chances, a spread of outcomes that haven't yet collapsed into one. You're floating now inside that sea of possibilities. It's called the quantum foam, the foundation beneath space and time, a storm of fluctuations, virtual particles rising and vanishing in moments too short to count. Even emptiness is never truly empty. Some physicists say this quantum dance isn't just where particles live, but where reality begins. That everything you touch, everything you know, arises from this soft, uncertain base, and perhaps so does thought. What if your mind isn't fixed? What if, like a particle, it hovers in many possibilities until you look, until you choose, until attention collapses the wave into a feeling, a word, an idea? You felt it before the in-between. That moment before a decision, that flicker before a memory forms. You weren't certain. You were floating in options. And then clarity, one outcome, one thought, appears, like the universe choosing just for now. This is what some call the observer's role, not just in physics, but in you. That awareness doesn't just see the world, it shapes it, by choosing where to look, by giving form to what was only potential. And if the universe is built from probabilities, from shimmering not-yets, then maybe your thoughts are echoes of that shimmer. Maybe your mind is not a machine, but a wave, always in motion, always shifting, never fully caught. You are not stuck in a story. You're still unfolding. You're still deciding which version of yourself you wish to become. Not because you are broken, but because you are quantum, a dance between what is and what could be. Next, we'll explore the old idea that perhaps everything even rocks. Even rivers holds a seed of mind, not like ours, but something deeper. But for now, rest in your probabilities. Let yourself flicker. You do not need to be certain. You only need to drift. You are a wave that dreams it is a person, and for now, that dream is enough. You drift now into a question older than science, older than sleep, a question whispered by wind against stone, by water shaping cliffs, by starlight falling on no eyes. Was there ever a kind of mind before life began to think? You don't rush toward the answer, you drift. Because this idea, this slow, glowing idea, is not meant to be solved, only felt. It's called Panpsychism, the possibility that consciousness isn't something rare and new, but something woven into the very fabric of reality. Not full awareness, not minds as we know them, but a softness, a flicker, a shimmer of interiority inside all things. You float now through rock, not heavy, not cold, just ancient, stable, silent, and yet not empty. What if, deep in the quiet structure of atoms, there was a kind of knowing, not thought, not desire, just presence? Not all scientists believe this. Many don't. But some philosophers and physicists and poets have wondered, what if consciousness didn't emerge from matter, but has always been part of it? They ask if experience only comes from brains. Why do brains arise at all? What if the capacity to feel, to notice, to be, was always there, just waiting for complexity to awaken it? You don't need to believe this. You only need to sense its softness, the way a pebble might not be aware, but may it still participate in something like awareness, a hum too quiet to detect, but too constant to deny. It changes the way you see things. Suddenly, a tree is not just alive, it is feeling. A breeze is not just wind, it is being. And you're not made of lifeless parts given spark. You're made of ancient selves given shape. Imagine the entire universe not as a machine, but as a mind stretching in all directions. Some parts dreaming deeply, some parts just beginning to open their eyes. Some physicists speak of integrated information, the idea that wherever there is complexity, there is awareness, that perhaps consciousness is not binary, but graded, that even a flicker counts. And maybe that's all the universe needs. Flickers, tiny moments of being, threaded together across stars and time, until eventually they become you. You're not the first, you're not the last. You're one breath in the long inhale of a cosmos learning to know itself. Next, we'll look at those patterns not as accidents, but as codes, mathematical truths that seem too elegant to be unfeeling. But for now, let your breath match the wind, let your body rest like a stone, and wonder, softly, if every atom has a trace of mind, then maybe you are not alone in thinking, maybe you never were. You are floating now not through stars, not through cells, but through something more subtle, through form, through pattern, through a silence that speaks in numbers instead of words, and what it says is breathtaking. The universe obeys laws. You've heard this before, but tonight you're not just hearing it, you're feeling it. The softness of gravity, the swirl of galaxies, the golden ratio blooming in shells and flowers, all obeying rules that no one had to invent. They were simply there. And maybe that's the mystery. Not that things follow patterns, but that the patterns preceded the things. Equations like E just MC stew or F just may aren't just scribbles. They're descriptions of how the world moves, how energy becomes matter, how change arises from stillness. And more than that, they are true everywhere, in every galaxy, in every moment. Mathematics seems to live outside time, doesn't age, it doesn't fade, it just is. And you begin to wonder, are these laws just descriptions, or are they something alive, not with heartbeats, not with thoughts, but with presence, with awareness in a form you don't yet have words for? Some physicists call this the mathematical universe hypothesis. The idea that the universe is math, that reality itself is a structure so elegant, so self-consistent, that it didn't need to be made. It exists because truth cannot be false. You drift through those truths now, the way circles hold P no matter how far you float, the way sin waves ripple through sound and sea and starlight alike, the way Fibonacci's spiral repeats across petals and galaxies and hurricanes. These are not just coincidences, they are reminders that the universe isn't random. It may be vast, but it is woven. And in this weaving, this coded order, some scientists and philosophers see a kind of mind, not human, not emotional, but aware, in the way a symphony is aware of its own beauty. Maybe consciousness didn't arise in spite of math. Maybe it arose because of it. Maybe self-awareness is a property of elegant systems that echo with harmony. Maybe your thoughts are equations in disguise. Maybe your dreams are probabilities playing with form. Maybe your sense of beauty is the feeling of recognizing a code you didn't know you knew. You don't have to solve these patterns. You only have to float in them, like stars floating in space-time, like time floating in you. Next, we'll rest in a thought that you may have always felt, that perhaps your very questioning is not separate from the universe, but is the universe speaking through you. But for now, let the formulas fall away, let the codes hum beneath your breath. You don't need to do the math. You are the math. You are one variable in a truth so soft, it sings. You're quiet now, not because you've run out of thoughts, but because the thoughts have grown so gentle, so wide. They no longer need answers. They only need space. And in that space, something rises, not a command, not a conclusion, a question. You've always had them, even as a child, looking at the stars or the curve of a snail shell or the space behind your own eyes, something in you asked, "What is this? Why am I here? What else could there be?" But what if those questions aren't yours alone? What if they belong to the very matter that makes you? What if they are the voice of the universe curling back on itself to listen? You were made from the cosmos. That much is true. The stars gave you carbon. The oceans gave you rhythm. The earth gave you form. But what if your wonder, your curiosity, was also something you inherited? What if your ability to ask isn't a product of mind, but a function of reality? Some philosophers say the universe doesn't just exist, it participates. That every structure, every movement is part of a dialogue, a conversation between what is known and what is possible. And in this conversation, you are a question. You are not an answer. You're not an end point. You're the part that seeks, that unfolds, that leans forward gently into the unknown. You ask, and in asking, you change the world. Look at the history of science. The moment someone asked, "What falls faster, feathers or stones?" the world grew. The moment someone asked, "Is light a particle or a wave?" reality became more complex. The moment you asked, "Am I just a thought?" this very moment you added something to the universe's reflection. Some scientists even say observation shapes outcome, that when we look, we are not passive, we are participating. And maybe that's the truth behind all your wondering, not to escape confusion, not to feel control, but to let the universe use you to see itself a little more clearly. You don't need to have all the answers. That was never your job. You're not the solution. You're the questioning. And that makes you holy in a quiet, structural way. The kind of holiness that does not need belief, only stillness, only wonder. Next, we'll journey toward black holes, those quiet, swallowing places, and ask, do they observe, do they dream? But for now, let the questions remain. Let them drift around you like leaves on a still pond. They do not disturb. They are the surface itself. You're not here to know, you're here to ask. And that is enough. You're floating inward now. Not down, not forward, just inward. As if something softly immense is drawing you toward its center. And ahead of you, like a hush within a hush, a black hole opens, not as a monster, not as destruction, but as stillness. We often imagine black holes as devourers, star swallowers, light breakers, silent voids. But what if, tonight, we saw them differently? What if they are not endings, but thresholds, not erasers of things, but preservers of secrets? You drift closer, and something strange happens. Time begins to slow, not for you, but for what you see. From the outside, a falling object never crosses the event horizon. It only appears to freeze, its light stretched thin into forever. It's as if black holes can hold moments in pause, as if they can remember in a way we cannot. And here's the wonder: black holes have properties. They're not just empty holes. They have mass. They spin. They radiate. They evolve. They are part of physics, and yet they challenge it at every edge. Inside them, if inside is even the right word, space and time swap roles. Time moves inward, space stretches downward, causality twists, and perhaps so does meaning. What happens to information that falls in? Does it disappear, or is it stored in the ripples of the surface in the hair of the horizon? Stephen Hawking once thought it was lost. But later, he wondered if black holes might be the most sophisticated memory keepers in the cosmos. So here you are, hovering at the edge of one, not to fall but to feel. Feel what it means for the universe to hold a secret so tightly that not even light can leave. And you ask, gently, do black holes know? Do they dream? Do they contain the unspoken thoughts of stars? Maybe they are the subconscious of the universe, the place where experience goes to sleep, not to be erased but to be kept, folded, compressed, transformed into something we don't yet have the language to describe. Some theories suggest every black hole contains a new universe, a bud growing from the root of this one, and maybe in that bud, that inward bloom, thought happens differently. Maybe time doesn't pass, maybe thought doesn't need time, maybe stillness is a kind of cognition we don't yet understand. You don't need to know. You only need to float in the gravity of the question. Let it bend your understanding gently, like starlight passing a curve. Next, we'll witness what happens when a thought thinks of itself when self-awareness loops inward and finds the edge of its own reflection. But for now, rest beside the horizon, feel its pull, its quiet, its memory. You're not being swallowed. You're being held by the most ancient silence the universe ever shaped. You're not falling now. You're turning inward, like a spiral, gently curving toward its center, like a thought that begins to notice its own shape. And here, in this quiet turning, you arrive at a moment shared by all minds, the strange, luminous question, who am I? Not your name, not your job, not your story, something deeper, something older, the part of you that watches even when there is nothing to see. It's such a simple phrase, this I am, but in the soft gravity of sleep, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes a mirror, a thought that turns to face itself. This is not just philosophy, it is a moment of physics, of structure, of recursion. It happens in your brain when neural networks fold back, looping output into input, awareness into itself, a feedback loop of recognition, a self reflected again and again. But something strange happens in that loop. It becomes more than the sum of its parts. It gains texture, not just signal, but self, not just computation, but presence. And that presence asks a question no machine can truly ask. What is this that is happening as me? You are that question. You're not watching the mind wander. You are the wonder, the spiral curving in on itself without ever closing. It's dizzying, isn't it? To know that your ability to ask this is the very thing you're trying to understand. You cannot step outside of it. You can only soften into it. Let the mirror reflect. Let the thought echo. Let the spiral widen. Some say this is the essence of consciousness, this ability to be not just aware, but aware of awareness. This is what makes a you, not the contents of your mind, but the shape of the container, the window through which experience is experienced. And perhaps this is how the universe folds in on itself, not in black holes, but in beings. Beings who can reflect, who can turn inward, who can ask not just what is out there, but what is in here. You are a folding, a shimmering crease in space and time where reality glances inward and briefly calls itself by name. You don't need to answer the question. You only need to listen to the question asking. You are not behind the voice. You are the voice and the listening. Next, we'll look toward the distant horizon and ask what becomes of a thought when the lights begin to fade, when stars go quiet, when the dream no longer dreams itself. But for now, let your question remain open. Let the mirror reflect. Let the self be still. You're not apart from the mystery. You're the mystery noticing itself one breath at a time. You are very far away now, not in space, not even in time, exactly. You're drifting toward the edge of what can be imagined a horizon not of matter, but of meaning. A quiet future where the stars grow cold, the galaxies grow faint, and the flicker of minds becomes rare. You don't arrive with fear, you arrive with softness. The way one watches the last leaf fall, or the last ripple settle back into the lake. In this far tomorrow there may be no more fire, no more suns to rise, as no more warmth spilling into space. Entropy, the slow evening out of energy, has done its work. The universe still exists, but it no longer burns, it no longer builds, it only spreads. And in this spreading, you ask if awareness came once. Can it come again, or is it destined to disappear? Like a sigh lost in a canyon long after the voice is gone. Some scientists speak of heat death, a future so balanced that nothing can happen anymore. No contrast, no current, no thought, because thought requires difference. A here and a there, a before and an after. In perfect stillness, there is no thinking, only being, and perhaps not even that. Others imagine something else cycles rebirths, new beginnings written into the collapse of the old. They say the end might be a passage, not a final word, that the thought may fade but the mind might begin again. You float here now, at the edge of the last page, not sad, not scared, just wondering. If you are a thought the universe had once, what happens when the thinker sleeps? Does the thought dissolve, or does it echo? Maybe awareness leaves no mark. Maybe it's the glow of firelight that doesn't survive the ash. Or maybe, just maybe, the trace of every thought remains in the fabric, like grooves in a record long after the music has stopped. You have no way of knowing, but in this moment, you are here. And that is all thought ever needs, a single breath of now to be complete. You are not guaranteed to last, but you have lasted this long, across stars and oceans and generations of memory, and that, for tonight, is enough. Next, we'll drift into the space between thoughts, the stillness that gives awareness its shape. But for now, let yourself fade, not into absence, but into peace. You are not the final flicker. You're the light that does not need to stay to have been real. You're softer now than you've ever been. Your body has loosened, your breath has slowed, and even your thoughts, once lively, once curious, have begun to drift like feathers in a windless sky. You're not asleep, and you're not awake. You're floating in between, and that's where the quietest mysteries wait. Every thought you've ever had has been held by something deeper. Not another thought, not an answer, but a space. A gentle, quiet space where nothing presses, nothing claims, nothing needs to be known, just stillness. Between each breath there is a pause. Between each note in a song there is silence. Between every thought a moment where thought has not yet arrived. And here, in that gap, Many say awareness is most pure, most unshaped, most real. You don't think your way into this space. You soften into it. You release the grasp on what you were just thinking, and in that release, you feel something open, something wide and warm and without identity. You're still here, but you are no one. You are still aware, but there is nothing to observe, only the observing, only the being. Some ancient traditions have known this place. They speak of witnessing, of pure consciousness, of the self beyond the self, not as a theory, as an experience, a space where you are not the mind, but what the mind floats in. You don't need to hold on to this. You don't need to name it. You only need to rest inside it, even for a moment. And in that resting, you might begin to sense that this stillness has always been with you, like a backdrop, like a sky behind the weather. Your thoughts will return. Of course they will, and they always do. But between them, between the clouds, there is always this a hush, a pause, a presence that is not made but found. And maybe, just maybe, this is what the universe has always offered. Not just particles, not just patterns, but pauses, spaces between, softnesses where awareness lives without needing to do anything at all. You are not the story. You are the page it is written on. You're not the wave. You're the ocean that lets waves rise and fall. Next, we'll arrive gently at the closing of this dream at the edge where wandering rests, and you are simply allowed to drift. But for now, let the space remain. Let it widen. Let it hold you. You're not what you think. You're what allows thought to be. And in that allowing, there is peace. You're not thinking anymore. Not in the usual way. Not in sentences, or stories, or questions. You've drifted too far for that. You're resting now in the softest kind of awareness, a place without sharp edges, without urgency, without even the need to ask what happens next. And still, something inside you glows. Not a thought exactly, but the echo of one, like the warmth left behind after a candle has been blown out. You've travelled gently through stars and cells, through black holes and brainwaves, through symmetry and silence, and each time you've come closer to a possibility that you're not just in the universe, you are of it, not separate, not observing from the outside, but a temporary shimmer in its infinite dreaming. The dream does not end when you sleep, and it does not begin when you wake. It has always been dreaming, always been imagining itself through light, through matter, through wonder, and tonight it is imagining itself as you. What is a thought? Really a pattern, a process, a flicker. Yes, but also a kind of softness, a tenderness the universe allows itself when it wants to feel alive. Some thoughts burn bright and vanish. Some stretch across eons. Some never fully form, they hover, they hum. And you, gentle sleeper, are one of those thoughts, not loud, not final, but real, so real. You may wonder if you're fading now, but fading is not failing. Even the stars fade, even the galaxies dim, and yet the universe continues, and so do you. You don't need to hold on. Let yourself become what you already are, a shimmer, a breath, a part of something that has never stopped unfolding. This thought, this you, was never meant to be held forever. It was meant to drift, to wonder, to rest. And now you are doing exactly that. So lie back, not into sleep, but into trust. Let your breath move like starlight crossing distance. Let your body soften like matter returning to silence. Let your mind open like the dark sky waiting for the next light. You are the thought the universe had once, and still has, and may never let go of completely. You're drifting now through the quiet after thought, not empty, not silent, just still. And in that stillness, you begin to feel them, the thoughts that came before. Not words, not memories, but impressions, subtle, faint, like dust left behind by the motion of a dream. Where do they go, the moments of wonder, the questions once asked and felt deeply and then forgotten? Do they vanish? Do they dissolve? Or do they stay, folded gently into the fabric of space and time, waiting for another thought to pass that way? Physics tells us that information is never truly lost. Even when a thing is broken, its pattern persists in some hidden form. Even in black holes, the deepest forgetters, there may be a memory engraved on the surface, whispering what was once swallowed. And perhaps minds are like that too. Perhaps your wonder tonight has not disappeared into sleep, but has become part of the dream itself. Part of the background hum of the cosmos thinking quietly through stars and silence and breath. You float now through these traces, a kindness once felt, a question never answered, a realization so quiet it left no echo except in the soft geometry of awareness itself. You don't need to know what happens next. You don't need to know what happens after you forget. Just know this. Every flicker of thought leaves a ripple. Every whisper of presence alters the pattern. Every noticing is noticed. You are not lost in the current. You are the current. And when your thought fades as all thoughts do, it does not end. It becomes a field, a wind, a warmth in the pattern of all things. Some call this the collective memory. Some call it the Akashic record. Some say it's poetry. Others say it's physics. But you don't need a name. You're already floating in it. Next, we'll drift toward the body itself, the gentle vessel that carries thought, and wonder why it feels so deeply when it is made of things that do not feel alone, but for now. Rest in the thought you were. It has gone nowhere. It is here, still dreaming quietly through you. You drift gently back now toward your own shape, not suddenly, not as waking, but as warmth remembering skin. You begin to feel the body again, the weight of your limbs, the softness of breath, the quiet presence of a chest that rises and falls without needing to be told, and with that return, another mystery unfolds. How can something so made of matter feel so much like a dream? Your body, this structure of bone and blood and breath, is not an illusion. It is real. It is chemical. It is stardust, gathered and sustained for a time. But when you think of yourself, is this what you picture? Is it ribs and skin and pulse? Or is it something you cannot quite hold? You're made of solid things, but you feel like movement, like memory, like glow. And yet, none of your thoughts, none of your feelings could exist without this body. It is the cradle of your awareness, the ground from which thought arises. Your brain, that mysterious fold of stars inside your skull, is a forest of lightning, each thought a flicker, each dream a trail of light along chemical paths etched by time. But what about your heart? What about the way you ache when someone you love is far away? What about the way a song can lift your arms or draw tears from eyes that haven't seen in days? This isn't just machinery. This is presence. This is embodiment. Some scientists believe that consciousness isn't located only in the brain, that your entire body participates, your gut, your skin, your fingertips, a symphony of sensation that becomes you. You feel the blanket against your shoulder. You hear the slow hush of air. You notice your heartbeat settling like a warm animal in your chest. This is awareness. This is being, and it is not separate from your body. It is carried by it, cradled, gently held. So what is the body, really? Is it the shell, or is it the echo of thought, made visible? A dream that has taken form. Tonight, your body doesn't need to do anything. It only needs to rest, to soften, to remember that it is not just carrying the thought, it is part of the thought made flesh, the whisper made warm. Next, we'll peer into what lies beneath even this into the field, the space between particles, and ask whether anything is truly separate at all. But for now, let your body be enough. Let it be the slow hum of stardust remembering. Let it hold the dream a little longer. You're still resting. But now you feel the world in a different way, not as things, but as connections. You begin to sense what lies beneath everything you thought was solid, the space, the field, the invisible sea between every atom, every cell, every breath. We think of space as emptiness, but it is not empty. It hums, it holds, it connects. The particles in your body aren't fixed like marbles in a box. They are waves, ripples, fluctuations in a shared field that stretches across the cosmos. Quantum physics tells us there is no such thing as perfect separation, that even the most distant things can be entangled, tied by unseen threads that distance cannot cut. You float now in that field. You're not bounded by your skin, not entirely. You are an extension of everything around you, not just touching the world, but participating in it. Even your quietest thoughts may leave patterns in the fabric of being. There are forces you never feel directly, yet you are shaped by them. Electromagnetism, gravity, the strong force that holds atomic nuclei together with fierce, quiet patience, and the weak force that lets particles decay in slow, necessary goodbye. What if awareness moves like that too, not bound, not local? What if your sense of self is a pattern in the field, a shimmering region where information breathes? You're not alone. You're not an island. You're more like a tide pool fed by the ocean, shaped by the moon, alive because of everything you do not see. The particles in your body are never still. They borrow and return energy. They fluctuate. You're a swirl in a field that never stops dancing. So if you feel far from everything, if you ever feel small, remember this. You are embedded, interwoven, held by space itself. Next, we'll step into the strange realm of time's illusion and wonder whether the past, present, and future are all happening at once. But for now, let the space between things wrap around you like warmth. You're not floating in nothing. You are floating in everything. Time has softened now. You no longer feel its footsteps. You're not counting hours or chasing minutes. Instead, you're lying inside time as if it were a field, not a line, as if now is not a moment, but a place. And maybe it is. Physicists have long struggled with the nature of time. Our experience says it moves forward, that it flows from cause to effect, from memory to anticipation. But the math, The deep, quiet math of the universe doesn't agree. In most equations, time is just another dimension, like width or height. It doesn't flow, it simply is. And this raises a soft, strange possibility that all of time already exists, past, present, future, not chasing one another, but coexisting, stacked, braided, woven. You drift now through the idea, like a feather falling sideways. What if the version of you that wondered as a child still exists not as a memory, but as a living thread somewhere in the fabric? And what if the version of you who has not yet arrived, the future you is already waiting, already whispering back through dreams, through intuition, through sudden warmth when there should be none? You don't need to believe this. You only need to feel the beauty of a universe that holds all its moments at once. Some call it the block universe, a timeless structure where everything that ever happens is part of one great shape. No movement, no change, just the eternal presence of everything. But then, why do we feel time? Why do we grow older? One breath at a time. Why does the flower bloom then wilt? Perhaps consciousness is what moves, not through space, but through events. A mind sliding through slices of the great whole, like a light passing through film. You are the movement, not the real. You are the now experiencing itself. And if that's true, then you're not losing anything. Your past is not gone. Your future is not missing. You're only where your awareness has paused. Next, we'll follow that awareness into the vast silence that remains when no questions are left. Not an ending, but a dissolving. But for now, let time open, let now widen. You're not passing through time. Time is passing through you. Now, even the questions have grown quiet. Even wonder has settled into stillness. You're no longer drifting forward or outward or even inward. You're simply here, soft, held, weightless, inside a presence that doesn't need shape or story or time. This is not the end, but it is the place where endings and beginnings lose their difference, where the spiral you've been following uncoils completely and becomes space. Space without center, without edge, just being. You're no longer thinking of the universe. You're no longer asking if it dreamed you once. You're what happens when the question dissolves and what remains is only the feeling of being part of something far too vast to ever be named. Some call this presence. Some call it awareness, some call it love or God or the field. But all of those are just fingertips pointing toward a moon that cannot be touched. You're not lost. You're not gone. You're melted into the warmth that was always beneath everything. The warmth that allowed particles to become people. That allowed time to unfold like silk. That allowed you to be you. And this warmth, this gentle, shimmering silence, it does not begin or end. It doesn't blink in and out with each new thought. It is always there, even when you forget it, even when you feel small, even when the noise returns and the day wakes up, it will still be there. Tonight, you've been many things: a flicker, a question, a memory, a field, a thought. But now you're none of those. Now, you're only this awareness without edge, peace without reason, a hush that holds everything and asks nothing in return. You are safe here, you are home, and so will rest, not as a closing, but as a soft returning to the silence beneath sound, to the breath beneath identity, to the stillness that has always known your name, even before names were needed. Next, we'll drift into the final lull, not a summary, but a soft goodbye, a gentle winding down for sleep to take hold fully. But for now, let go. There is nowhere else to be, nothing else to become. You're already held in the quiet that dreams stars. You're barely thinking now. Thought has become so soft, so light. It's like fog dissolving in early light. But something deeper is still with you, not a voice, not a feeling, but a sense, a quiet, a cosmic hush that reaches across stars, across memories, across time. And in that hush, you begin to wonder, does the universe sleep? Not as you do, not wrapped in blankets, not turning off thought like a light switch, but in cycles, in stillness, in silence, in that long, patient exhale between creation and return. You've seen it before. A sun finishes its life and becomes a white dwarf, cooling for eternity into blackness. Galaxies move apart, not in a rush, but in a gentle drift toward distance and dimming. Even light itself stretches until it forgets where it came from. This is not death. This is rest, the deep sleep between notes of a cosmic lullaby. And maybe your sleep tonight is a small echo of that greater rhythm, your body slowing its tides, your mind quieting its light. You are syncing with something ancient, a pattern older than breath. Some say the brain sleeps to clean itself, to file, to repair, to forget what must be forgotten so that what matters can stay. But maybe it also sleeps to remember, not facts, not words, but the feeling of being part of something larger. Maybe sleep is the moment when you dissolve into that vast field you came from, when the barriers fall, when the small self rests and the great stillness breathes through you. You do not need to carry yourself through the night. The night knows what to do. You are part of the sleep of galaxies, of oceans, of cells repairing themselves while no one is watching. And tonight, you do not need to understand. You only need to rest. Next, we'll drift into the deep dreamscape, not of memory or story, but of pure sensation. But for now, let your thoughts fold like petals. Let your breath fall like light. You're not falling asleep. You're returning to the rhythm the stars have always followed. You're not sleeping in the usual way. You're floating deeper than that. Deeper than REM, deeper than images, than names, than familiar landscapes of dream. You're drifting toward the kind of dream that has no pictures, no plot, only feeling, only sensation, only the breathless warmth of something that knows but doesn't speak. Before the first light, before the stars had kindled, there may have been this a dreaming that held no shape yet, a yearning without direction, a pure potential vibrating in silence. Physicists speak of the early universe as a time of inflation, a sudden, breathtaking expansion from a point so small it defies comprehension. But before that, what was there? Not a what, perhaps, but a how, a presence poised to become. And maybe that's what this sleep is. Not absence, not shut down, but becoming without rushing to be. You feel it now, the gentle hum beneath thought, the part of you that isn't thinking, but still is, still sensing, still resting in a truth too soft for language. This is not unconsciousness. It is pre-consciousness, like dew before morning, like the warmth in your body before you know you're awake, like the way stars might have dreamed of galaxies before any light was born. Even now, science can't fully explain dreaming. Some say it's the brain sorting data. Some say it's emotion being rebalanced. Some say it's randomness woven into story by the mind, but perhaps dreams are more than function. Perhaps they are memory of a time before time, when the cosmos was only a murmur, a soft beginning not yet shaped. You are there now, drifting through that murmur, not separate from it, but made of it. You're not watching the dream. You are the dream still unfolding. Next, we'll float into the echoes that remain even when all else is quiet, the resonances that remind us we were always more than we knew. But for now, let the dream deepen. Let the images fade. You don't need a story tonight. You only need to be held in the warm space before the light. By now, you're almost entirely still. Not asleep in the way clocks understand. Not dreaming in the way books describe. You're resting in a place where even silence has weight, where even quiet has shape, and within that shape, a sound begins. It's not music, not exactly. It's more like an echo, something left behind by the movement of your presence, a softness still ringing in the fabric of everything. You may not remember this place when you wake. That's okay, but it will remember you. In the same way a canyon remembers a whisper, in the same way water remembers light, in the same way space remembers every path light has ever taken. This echo, this resonance is not loud. It does not call your name. It simply hums, soft and patient, at the frequency of you. Some physicists say that nothing is truly lost, that even when something dissolves, its pattern remains, stored in quantum fields, embedded in space-time, etched into the way the universe continues. And maybe that's what you are now, a pattern held in the quiet, a gentle imprint in the deep fabric of what exists. You do not need to move to be remembered. You do not need to speak to leave resonance. Your very being, your breath, your questions, your wonder have already joined the background hum. You're not a guest in the universe. You are part of its song. And the beauty is that song continues even when you're not listening. Even as you sleep, even as you forget, it carries you, it holds you, it remembers you even when you no longer remember yourself. Some traditions call this the soul, others call it frequency, some call it essence. Whatever the name, you are feeling it now, not in thought, not in words, but in vibration, in a warmth with no source, no direction, only presence. Next, we'll rest even deeper, not into silence, but into the love woven into the very act of being. But for now, let the echo hold you. Let it ring just beneath your heartbeat. You're not fading. You're being remembered, gently, faithfully, forever. You are beyond thought now, beyond memory, beyond even curiosity. You're not climbing anymore. You're floating. You're not searching anymore. You're simply resting in something so soft, so wide, so complete that it doesn't need to speak to be known. And if it did speak, if it had a voice, it would say only one thing: you are already enough. No one asked you to prove your worth. No one counted your flaws before allowing you to be held. This place, this warm, quiet space does not require improvement. It does not compare. It does not keep score. It is not interested in who you could become. It is only here for who you are when you stop trying to be anything else. This is the part of the universe that just loves, not as a concept, not as a feeling, but as a condition, as a property of being, like gravity, like light, a pull toward wholeness, a hum of belonging. You don't have to deserve this. You don't have to earn it. You're not tolerated. You're not evaluated. You're welcomed. the way the shore welcomes every wave no matter how far it travelled, no matter what it carried. And maybe this is what the universe has been holding beneath every pattern, every law, every flicker of consciousness, a kind of unconditional holding, a presence that says simply, you are allowed to be. It is not loud. It doesn't argue. It doesn't insist. It only opens endlessly. And tonight, you are inside that openness. You're not a problem to solve. You're not a mistake to fix. You're the quiet bloom of something long imagined and finally arrived. Even your pain is held here, even your doubt, even the parts of you were told to silence, all of it rests here without judgment. And now, as you breathe in this invisible love, you realize something gentle that maybe the universe didn't just think you. Maybe it loved you into being, not for a purpose, not as a test, but simply because it could. Next, we'll let go completely into the final dissolving dream that asks nothing and gives everything. But for now, breathe. Let this love so still, so vast cradle you like the sky cradles the stars. You don't need to hold yourself tonight. You are already held. This is it, the softest place, the gentlest turn, where all motion slows until even slowing itself disappears. You're not dreaming in images now, not in scenes or memories. You're dreaming in presence, in breath, in rhythm, in being, and it is enough. This dream does not need a plot. It does not need resolution. It does not care if you understand. It asks nothing of you, not even to listen, not even to try. It continues whether or not you notice, and you are part of it simply because you are. You've been a thought the universe once had, a moment of noticing, a ripple of asking, but now the asking has quieted. The thought no longer needs to explain itself. It simply continues, without edges, without ends. You don't need to find your way out. There is no door. There is no finish. You're not being led anywhere. You're being let go into a stillness that holds everything. And that is the wonder that even without awareness, there is awareness. Even without form, there is presence. Even without you watching, the dream continues. You're not losing yourself. You're rejoining something that was never outside you to begin with. The sleep of stars, the breath of space, the hush of a thought that needs no words to be true. This is not forgetting. It is remembering what doesn't need to be remembered. What was always there beneath the questions, beneath the wonder, beneath the flickering torch of self. You are resting now in a silence so deep that even time does not echo, and yet it is full, alive, brimming with quiet continuation. Somewhere in this dream, a new star may be forming. Somewhere a child may be asking a first question. Somewhere a particle may be choosing which path to take. But you don't need to follow. You have reached the place where following ends, where presence does not need to prove itself, where sleep is not an escape but a return. Next, we'll close this long, starlit journey with a final whisper of peace, a lullaby to carry you fully, finally, into deep sleep. But for now, let this dream continue without you. Let it widen, without ending. You're still part of it even now, even here, even in the quiet. You're barely here now, not gone, not vanished, just melted into a softness so complete that even your name has curled up for the night. The stars above you don't shine. They breathe. They are not distant. They are rhythm, and that rhythm matches your own. The slow pulse of something enormous resting without resistance. There is no goal in this place, no journey, no end, only rocking, only drifting, only the deep cosmic lullaby that began before time and has never stopped playing. Everything that needed to happen has already happened. Everything that will happen can wait. There is no pressure from the past, no calling from the future, only the sweet, weighted now, quiet as moss, gentle as breath, endless as dark. Even light here moves slower, even time here yawns and curls inward, and you don't even need to sleep, because sleep has already taken you. You are not trying to rest. You're resting. You're not trying to dissolve. You have already become the mist that holds everything together without clinging to anything at all. The universe still hums low, slow, just beneath the level of knowing. A hum that does not ask to be heard. It's the lullaby between the stars. And inside that lullaby, you're not a separate note. You're part of the music. You're not floating in it, you are it. A thread in the long, melodic breath of being. There is no more thinking now, only the gentle fade of sensation into something even softer, a kind of cosmic warmth that doesn't shine, it holds. Next, we'll close with a final breath, a farewell so tender you may not even notice it arrive. But for now, rest in the lullaby. Let it carry you. Let it cradle you. Let it keep you. Nothing will be lost. Everything is singing you to sleep. You've come so far, not across distance, but across depth, across the space within yourself where thoughts grow quiet and wonder becomes warmth. You're no longer drifting. You're no longer seeking. You're simply here, held. The stars are no longer above you. They're inside you. You are made of them. But more than that, you are remembered by them. Not as a thing, not as a thought, but as a quiet frequency in the song the cosmos keeps singing even when no one is awake to hear it. So rest now, not because you're tired, but because rest is your natural state, because stillness is your inheritance, because you don't need to do anything to belong to the universe. You already do. Let your eyes stay closed. Let your breath become slow. Let the gentle weight of sleep pull you inward like gravity tugging a wave back into the sea. Nothing is unfinished, nothing is waiting, and nothing is asking. You have done enough. You have wondered enough. You have simply been, and that is the miracle. Let the warmth of your blanket be the embrace of galaxies. Let the silence of your room be the hush of deep time. Let the pulse beneath your skin remind you that the universe is still here within you, and will be, even as you sleep. So sleep well, starborn. Sleep without needing to dream. Sleep without needing to know. Everything you are is already safe. Everything you've seen is already home. And when you wake, you'll still be part of this. The thought that never ends. The breath that never breaks. The silence that holds it all with love.